Good evening. Welcome, everyone. Today we are beginning our evening classes. Today is our first class. We are learning Chumash, and we are in Parashat Vayetze. In the last few weeks, we learned in the morning, and we covered a lot of breadth and depth of our amazing Torah. And today we're going to continue. I understand that because of the switch in times, there might be different people that couldn't make it in the morning, and now they're going to make it in the evening. And you may have missed those classes. If you're interested, I can send you links to them. And I hope you enjoy. Okay, we're using Art Scroll Chumash, and if you can, please get it. If you have it, open it so that you can look inside. I'm going to be reading the English side so you can follow along. You can take notes. So we're on page 145 of the Art Scroll Chumash. And the Parsha starts with Yaakov traveling from Be'er Sheva to Haran. Now, if you think about it, why did Yaakov have to travel from Be'er Sheva until Haran? The reason that we learn in the last week's Torah portion is that he is running for his life. Esav is hoping when time will come that he'll be able to kill Yaakov. This is the desire of many non-Jews, unfortunately. This is just the way Hashem created the world, that there should be struggle between the good and bad. And therefore, wherever you have good, you will have bad fighting against it. We see it in our personal life. Whenever we want to do good, right away, the Yetzer Hara, the forces of evil, attack us. The trick how you can use the Yetzer Hara for your benefit is, for example, when you're sitting in the doctor's office and you're waiting for your turn, or anytime you're waiting online and it's taking too long, the Yetzer Hara loves when we waste time. So it makes the wait extra long. However, the way to trick the evil inclination is to open a Chumash, open a book, a sefer, open any Jewish topic or lecture and start learning. As soon as you start learning, there will be opposition from the evil side. And what choice does it have? It made you sit in the doctor's office doing nothing. So you're using your time well and learning Torah. So it will have to find a way to stop you. What's the best way to stop you from learning? To make the doctor call you right away, to make the line move fast so that you abandon your sefer and you go for your appointment. So it's been tried and proven. Whenever we go to the doctor, my children know it, and they tell me, quickly open your Chumash, start learning so that they take us quickly. And it works every time. As soon as I open, I don't even have time to read one or two Pesukim. That's it. The doctor comes out and calls us, and we saved many hours this way. Why is that? Because there's eternal struggle between the good and evil. And whenever good and evil are next to each other, they fight. One way to avoid it is to run away. As they say, if Yetzer Hara comes to attack you, what do? So one of the ways is you have to jump or run to a different location. It works physically, that if you're just sitting and are bored and wasting your time, once you start actively doing something like running, jumping, your mind will become more excited, and it will start thinking of good ideas. And spiritually as well, when there is evil inclination, evil energy present next to you, when there is desire to do something bad, when there is depression or any other evil manifestation of Yetzer Hara, changing your location will help you to get rid of it. As it says, Mishanem Makom, Mishanem Mazal. Somebody who changes his location changes his Mazal. Mazal means the spiritual flow of energy. So that's what Yaakov is doing. He knows that staying next to Esav is dangerous for his well-being, physically and spiritually. Esav is evil. We know that Avraham Avinu passed away 5 years earlier because of Esav. So, as they say, the best way to win an argument is to avoid it. So that's what Yaakov is doing. Instead of fighting Esav, instead of involving his father to try to be the mediator between them, he says, you know what? I'm just going to leave my brother. Better to be far away, safe, than to be close and fighting. So Yaakov is running away from Beersheba. However, his father doesn't know why he's running away, really, because nobody told his father. Yaakov knows that Esau wants to kill him. Rivka, his mother, knows that Esau wants to kill him. Esau himself knows that he wants to kill Yaakov. Yitzhak, his father, is the only person in this story that does not know what's going on. What does he think? He thinks that Yaakov is going to get married. And he gave him his blessing that he should establish a good family with many children and continue the legacy of Avraham Avinu. But Yaakov is not going to get married. And we see that that's not his plan, because on the way to Haran, he stops by a yeshiva. For 14 years, his father is thinking that my son went to get married. And in the meantime, for next 14 years, Yaakov is learning in yeshiva. Why? Because on one hand, he didn't really go to get married. He went to get away from Esav. But now that he's away from Esav, until now he was next to his father, from whom he learned the Torah. Now he left the presence of his holy father. He needs another source of spiritual growth. So he goes to the yeshiva of Shem and Ever. Shem, the son of Noah, was still alive at that time, and for a few more years after Yaakov came in, and then he passed away. Ever, his descendant, Yaakov's great-great-grandfather, was the next head of the yeshiva, and Yaakov learned under him for the remaining years. And when Yaakov felt that he is ready to face the real world, he is ready to face Lavan, his future father-in-law, in another evil personality in his life, and he is ready to get married, then Yaakov continues on his way. So we read, Yaakov departed from Beersheba and went toward Haran. And he stopped by a place, and he went to sleep there. And Hashem arranged it so that it should be the place where his father Yitzhak was bound on the Mizbeach, on the altar. This was the place of the Beit HaMikdash, the place of the altar of the temple. And he went to sleep right there. And of course, if you go to sleep in a holy place with holy thoughts, you will have holy dreams. And in verse 12 it says, and he dreamt, and behold, a ladder was set earthward, and its top reached heavenward. And angels of God were ascending and descending on it. He has a vision of angels going to heaven and coming back down. Now, this ladder has many mystical and deep secrets. What does it mean? On a simple level, this was a sign for him that a person never stops growing. He may start on earth, but he has to know that the ladder is not 6 foot, not 8 foot, and not even 12 foot. It's a ladder that goes all the way to heaven, and the person cannot stop. He has to continue until he himself is in heaven, when he doesn't have anymore his body. As long as you are alive, you have to continue climbing higher and higher. That's one lesson of the ladder. Another lesson of the ladder is very important one. Why specifically a ladder and not a mountain and not a ramp? Because because a ladder means you have to make specific steps. You cannot jump more than one rung. At the same time, you cannot walk too slow, which means sometimes people, they put their foot in the water just to test the water, and then they draw away. If you make a half a step on the ladder, what's going to be? You remain on the same rung. In order to go higher, you have to make a specific commitment. You have to say, I'm taking upon myself keeping this mitzvah. And then you are on a higher level. If not, if you're wishy-washy, you're not going to grow. It has to be commitment. At the same time, very important to remember that you cannot jump more than one rung. If you do, you might fall. A ladder is designed to make one step at a time. And that's what we have to do in our growth, in our spiritual advancement. We cannot take too much upon ourselves. We cannot say, I want to become a tzaddik overnight. As they say, I want to learn the entire Talmud and get a good night's sleep as well. So in one night. So you have to make small steps, progress, continual progress for the rest of your life, and don't expect quick growth. It takes time, it takes effort, and the ladder has to be standing on the earth. The ladder is not flying high up. The ladder is standing on the earth, which means that's a third lesson of the ladder, that a person cannot expect continual and permanent growth unless he is based on the ground, until he has a good foundation. Without a good foundation, the whole thing is going to crumble. And unfortunately, we have many, many cases of people, well-meaning people, who became observant and they ran too fast, they jumped too high, they took too much upon themselves, and they crashed. And they crashed so much that they could not get up again, unfortunately. So a person has to be based on the ground. You have to have a very strong foundation, and the top has to be directed towards the heaven. Now, Rashi tells us, what were these angels going up and down? On a simple level, these were angels of the land of Israel going up to heaven, and the angels of outside of the land of Israel coming to escort him to his destination. Because we have different angels inside the land and outside the land. Now, he has a conversation with God. In verse 13, behold, Hashem was standing over him, and he said, I am Hashem, God of Abraham, father, your father, and God of Yitzchak. The ground upon which you are lying, to you will I give it, and to your descendants. Your offspring shall be as the dust of the earth, and you shall spread out powerfully westward, eastward, northward, and southward. And all the families of the earth shall bless themselves by you and by your offspring. So Hashem now comes and confirms the blessing that his father gave him. And he continues, behold, I am with you and I will guard you wherever you go, and I will return you to this soil, for I will not forsake you until I will have done what I have spoken about you. A very nice prophecy. He gives him a blessing, and he promises him that he will protect him and return him safely. Yaakov wakes up from his sleep. We're on page 147. And Yaakov replies to Hashem, surely Hashem is present in this place. And he said, how awesome is this place? This is none other than the abode of God, and this is the gate of the heavens. And he set up a monument, like an altar. He brought an offering of oil, and in verse 20, Yaakov took a vow. If God will be with me and will guard me on this way and give me bread and water and clothes to wear, and return in peace to my father's house, and he will be a God me briefly. Then, now Yaakov says what he promises to do for God. This stone, which I have set up as a pillar, shall become a house of God. And as we said, that place was the future site of the temple of Beit HaMikdash. And that's what happened. Yaakov fulfilled his promise through his children. Eventually, the Jewish people built the temple on that site. And one more promise Yaakov gives: whatever you will give me, I shall repeatedly tithe it to you. Tithe means separate 10%. That means that Yaakov took upon himself and upon his descendants a promise to separate maaser, 10% of all our income. We know that Abraham separated maaser. We know that Yitzchak separated maaser. They did it voluntarily for themselves. Yaakov not only did it voluntarily for himself, he also took it upon his children forever. And we as well separate 10% of our income as a thank you to Hashem for giving us the 100%. God gives us 100%, we give back 10%, and we share with those that are less fortunate than us. Now, chapter 29. Yaakov comes to a well near Haran. Haran is the city where Lavan, who comes from the family of Betuel, who comes from the family of Haran, lives. This city has the same name, Haran, as Lavan's grandfather, because could be it was renamed in honor of such a great personality as Haran. Now, Yaakov went toward the land of the Easterners. The land of Haran, the city of Haran, was northeast of the land of Israel. He looked, and behold, there was a well in the field, and there were flocks of sheep lay there beside it. And now we turn to page 149, verse 4. Yaakov said to them, my brothers, where are you from? And they said, we are from Haran. And he asked them, do you know Lavan? And they said, yes, sure. And here's his daughter Rachel coming with the flock. And now Yaakov sees that it's still daytime, and he asks them, it's not yet time to bring the livestock in back home. Water the flock quickly and go on grazing. Why are you sitting here waiting for something? And they said, we have policy in the city. We don't trust each other. So we put a large stone on the well so that you need many people to pick it up. And so until all the shepherds come, we cannot lift the stone, in order that no one should steal water. And in the meantime, Rachel arrived with her father's flock. And when Yaakov saw her, he recognized his wife in her. And all of a sudden, he was inspired. He wanted to do something for her. And he came forward and rolled the stone off the mouth of the well, single-handedly, and watered the sheep of Lavan, his uncle. Now, in verse 11, now, by the way, we see from this that everyone from the descendants of Abraham are great warriors, mighty people. We know Abraham, with just a few soldiers, conquered 4 kingdoms. We see Yaakov over here, single-handedly, he picks up a stone that a whole village of men had to come to do what he did. And we see later his children, the 12 tribes, they were so strong that they were not even afraid to fight whole countries, whole cities by themselves. And they destroyed the whole city of Shechem, and they were willing to fight the entire Egypt. So it's not surprising that Yaakov is so powerful to pick up the stone. Part of the reason why is that in olden times, there was a direct correlation between your spiritual stature and your physical body. The more strong, tall, beautiful a person was, that means the greater soul he had. That is why our foremothers are described as beautiful. Sarah was so beautiful that the kings constantly tried to kidnap her. Rivka was so beautiful that, again, kings tried to kidnap her. Rachel was very beautiful. Leah was very beautiful. And the reason is not because we put much emphasis on beauty, but rather because that showed that they were great women, spiritual giants. And we see the same thing about our kings. For example, Shaul HaMelech, King Saul. The Torah tells us that he was the tallest man among the Jewish people. Why? What's so important that he was tall? The fact that he was tall showed us that he was on a very high spiritual level. However, after the destruction of both temples, there is no longer such a correlation. We know in our times that does not exist. You can have a beautiful human being which does not qualify as a good human being. Being beautiful, handsome, tall, muscular does not mean that you are good. In the older times, it meant so, now it doesn't. You can have an ugly person, not handsome, short, fat, and he will be the greatest human being alive. He may get the greatest Gan Eden possible. So we have to keep that in mind. When we see people, we should not judge them according to their look or height or skin color or hair color or length. Rather, we should understand that our eyes now deceive us. What may seem beautiful on the outside might not be so on the inside. But at that time it was. And again, that is the only reason why the Torah describes our mothers as beautiful. to show that they were perfect in their soul. Now, verse 11 says a very interesting thing. Yaakov kissed Rachel. And in our modern world, this would be inappropriate. Why should a man kiss a woman? She's not his wife. First time he's seeing her. But what Yaakov is doing next will show that his intentions were pure. And he raised his voice and wept. Yaakov is crying. Why is Yaakov crying? He is crying because he sees that she is going to be his wife. But at the same time, he sees that she is going to die young. He sees that she will suffer a lot. She will not be able to have many children. He sees that she is not destined to be buried with him in Marat HaMachpelah. And he cries. Another reason he cries is because he came empty-handed. He cannot give her any gifts. Because on the way, he was robbed. And so he cries that unlike his father, when he got married, he had riches from Abraham. Now Yaakov wants to get married, he has nothing. No servants, no camels, no treasures, no document that states that everything that his father has, he gets. He really came empty-handed. Now, from his action, we see that his kiss to Rachel was not because of desire, was not because of lust. It was rather like a grandfather who is kissing his granddaughter. And in fact, at this point, Yaakov was 77 years old. And Rachel was a young girl, maybe 8, maybe 10 years old, maybe 12. The different opinions. So a 77-year-old man kissing a young girl, that gives us a different perspective. He's not looking for beauty. He looks deeper into her soul and he sees that she is his wife. Now, we continue. When Lavan, this is in verse 13, when Lavan heard the news of Yaakov, he ran toward him, embraced him and kissed him. And I'll just say, why did he do that? Because he thought that Yaakov is also coming rich. Lavan remembered how Yaakov's father came when Lavan was young. And Lavan and Yaakov's father, Yitzchak, not even he, his servant, came with 10 camels loaded with riches. And Lavan said, whoa, if the servant came with so much stuff, imagine how much the master himself is coming with. And he saw that he doesn't have camels, no servants, simple clothing, so he embraced him. He said maybe he's hiding jewelry under his clothing. He hugged him, and he saw he's a skinny guy, no jewelry hiding under his clothing. So then he kissed him. And as he kissed him, he searched inside his mouth to see maybe he's hiding precious jewels inside his mouth. But he came empty-tongued from there as well. So, nothing else to do, so he took him to his house. Now we turn to page 151. Lavan tells him, nevertheless, even though you are poor, you are my flesh and blood. And he stayed with him a month's time. After a whole month, Lavan tells him, Yaakov, why should you work for me for free? Now we see that Yaakov didn't just stay there as a guest. He stayed there as a laborer, as a worker. And even Lavan, the evil Lavan, was surprised. What's going on? Yaakov, I didn't expect that from you. I was hoping you're going to work for me, but not so much. Maybe I should pay you. What are your wages? And verse 16, Lavan had two daughters, Leah and younger one, Rachel. Both were beautiful. The Torah specifies that Leah's eyes were beautiful, and Rachel was beautiful of form and beautiful of appearance. Now, by saying that her eyes were beautiful, or in English they translate as tender, commentators point out that must be her eyes were special. Why were they special? Because she cried so much. Why did she cry so much? Because she also had a prophecy that just like Lavan has two daughters, Yitzchak has two sons. And Lavan's two daughters will marry into Yitzchak's family. So she assumed that she's going to marry Esav. And she was crying. She didn't want to marry Esav. So it was visible on her eyes. So much she cried. So Yaakov loved Rachel. He saw in her his soulmate. And he said, I will work for you for 7 years for Rachel, your younger daughter. No money in the world. I don't need any money. Just allow me to marry your daughter. Lavan would be happy that Yaakov should marry his daughter for free. But Yaakov knew that whatever you work hard for will be good. And Yaakov said, in order to build a Jewish family, you have to work hard. I'm willing to work hard for it. In fact, I'm going to work for 7 years and only then I'm going to get married. And Lavan said, sure, I would like to give her to you, even for free, than to give her to another man. Stay for 7 years. Now, before we continue, I just want to say a few words about who Lavan was. The name Lavan means white. We know that Esav had another name, Edom, which means red. Esav was less of a bad guy than Lavan. Esav was bad, and his name signified it. He was a bloodthirsty murderer and thief, and his name was Red, bloody red. At least he was honest. Esav did not lie. He hated Yaakov and he expressed it. He didn't like someone, he went and he fought. Lavan was different. Lavan was good on the outside and evil inside. His name was Lavan, white, pure, good, to trick everyone. Really, on the inside, he was the worst. This is very similar to the way we perceive evil in our days. Very often, it is the evil people who are talking the most. They are praising themselves the most. They're blaming everyone else. And the media promotes them, and it seems to unaided eye that really these are the greatest people of the whole country. And those that are uneducated might really get confused. They give themselves good names. They speak in an educated way. They claim that they love poor people and want to help them. but in reality, they are just like Lavan. They are white on the outside. They seem democratic, loving, peaceful, kind, but in reality, they are the epitome of evil, exactly like Lavan. How are you supposed to deal with them? So our sages say, whenever you are faced with such a challenge, when you have to face evil people, you should learn this Torah portion, the Torah portion of Vayetze, in which Yaakov has to deal with Lavan. The worst, even worse than Esav. That is why our Haggadah, the Haggadah of Pesach, starts with words, Arami Oved Avi. Lavan, the Aramean, wanted to destroy our father. Lavan was even worse than Pharaoh, than Paro of Egypt. That the Haggadah tells us that Paro only wanted to destroy the boys. Lavan wanted to destroy everyone, including his own daughters, his own grandchildren. When Lavan recognized that Yaakov represents good, he wanted to destroy him and his wife and his children, even though he would be destroying his own children and grandchildren. That's how evil Lavan was. So when we learn about him, he may look like a nice grandpa, nice guy, a little goofy, but in reality, he is the top evil master of the world. So Lavan tells him, yes, please stay with me. I'm going to love you and pay you, and you will have my daughter as a wife. So Yaakov worked for 7 years for Rachel, and they seemed to him a few days because of his love for her. Then 7 years passed. Yaakov said to Lavan, give me my wife. My term is fulfilled. So Lavan gathered everyone and made a feast. But in the evening, he took Leah and brought her to Yaakov. And he gave Zilpah as a maid servant to Leah. And it was only in the morning that Yaakov recognized that it was Leah. Now, by the way, many questions are being asked about this. How is it that Rachel didn't protest? She comes to her own wedding, and she is not allowed to go to her bridegroom, to her husband. Why is she not protesting? Why is she going to sleep quietly in her own tent, not with her bridegroom? Another question, why is Leah not saying anything? She didn't come to her own wedding. Why is she being led to someone else's husband? Why is she not informing Yaakov that she's not the one he wanted? Very powerful questions. How is it? And our sages tell us that Leah did not know what's going on, because Lavan told Leah that she is the chosen one. Lavan told Leah that Yaakov wants to marry her. So all along, Leah thought that she is the real wife. In the meantime, Rachel did not say anything. She knew that the trick might happen, and so she and Yaakov made up signs, secret code. She was hoping that she will be the wife, but when she saw that her father is planning to give Leah to Yaakov, she didn't say anything. Why not? Why didn't she protect Yaakov and herself against her father? And here our sages say that for her, the highest priority was not to hurt her sister. If she would protest, if she would reveal the plot, Leah would get embarrassed. She would get hurt. If she would not tell Leah the secret code, Leah would go there, Yaakov would ask her and recognize that she doesn't know the code and therefore she's not the right one. Leah would get hurt very much. So Rachel said, I have to give up my husband. I have to give up my future in this world and in the next world. Because if I cannot marry my soulmate, what's going to be with me? I'll have to marry Esav. But it's worth it in order to protect my sister. Once they asked Chazon Ish, what's the highest level a human being can reach? And Chazon Ish answered, the highest level for the human being to achieve is to go through your entire life and not to hurt even one person. And that's what our mothers were. Rachel was willing to give up everything, not to hurt her sister. Now, Yaakov came to Lavan and said, why have you deceived me? Now we turn to page 153. Lavan said, that's not our custom to marry off younger daughter before the older. Complete the week of Sheva Barachot with this bride, and I'll give you another wife to you, but you'll have to work for another 7 years. Imagine such a trickster. Not only he tricked him, now he tells him you have to pay twice. And Yaakov does not complain. He agrees to it. Okay, Lavan, I'll work for another 7 years. So now, after 7 days of Sheva Brachot, Yaakov marries Rachel as well. But because he feels bad, he has nothing against Leah, but he feels bad that he had to marry 2 wives. He wanted to be like his father, Yitzchak, who only had 1 wife. That's the ideal. Because of this trick, and Leah was part of it, unknowingly, Yaakov now has to have 2 wives. Not a perfect scenario. And he loves Rachel more than Leah. And Leah is very hurt. Yaakov loves Leah as well. But Leah feels that someone is loved more than she. So she suffers. And Hashem saw that Leah was unloved. So Hashem opened her womb while Rachel remained barren. From this sentence we learn that Leah was also supposed to be barren. And the only reason why she was given children right away was because she was suffering. Hashem only gives the person what he deserves, what was predicted for him, what was predestined. Certain amount of suffering was predestined for Leah, and she already received it. Now Hashem has to cancel all other suffering. Therefore, we learn from this that suffering is precious. Any kind of suffering the person gets, he should grab it with both hands, with love. Why? Because that suffering guarantees that the remainder of his life will be successful and happy. If you try to push away your troubles, your suffering, and you complain about it especially, what you're doing is you're delaying and increasing the suffering for the future, chas v'shalom. But if you say, Hashem, whatever tests you want to give me, I'll accept with love. I'm not asking for tests, but whatever you're going to give me, I will try to do my best. And whatever suffering comes upon a person, chas v'shalom, he should accept it with love. For example, even if you go to a dentist and you feel some pain when they give you the shot of anesthesia, consider that pain as taking away from your suffering that was predestined. And when they drill and the anesthesia doesn't work so well yet, and you feel the pain, keep in mind that pain takes away so much suffering from me and my family. Bezat Hashem. So Leah started to give birth to the 12 tribes. Who are they? First, Reuven, then Shimon, then Levi, and then Yehuda. Each one she names, hoping that this will bring her closer to her husband. Reuven. Reuven means see my son. Hashem should see my humiliation and make me more beloved. Shimon, to listen. Hashem should listen my humiliation, make me more beloved. Levi means connection. May Hashem make it that my husband should connect to me. Yehuda, I thank Hashem. Yehuda comes from the word to thank. I thank Hashem for giving me 4 children. And then she stopped giving birth temporarily. Rachel, now in chapter 30, Rachel saw that she did not give birth to any children. So she became jealous of her sister. She felt bad. I also won. It was my husband. Leah took away my husband. Not took away, but she was given my husband. And now she's being given my children. I was supposed to give birth to 12 tribes. Where are my children? Leah already gave birth to 4. And we turn to page 155. She said to Yaakov, give me children, otherwise I'm dead. That's how important children are to a woman. And Yaakov said, am I instead of God? I didn't cause you not to have children. It's not the problem with me. You see, I'm having children. You have to pray. And what Rachel meant was, you have to pray for me. Your father prayed for his wife, for your mother. Otherwise, you wouldn't be born. So pray for me. And she said, you know what? I'm going to do what your grandmother did, Sarah. Here is my maid, Bilhah. Please let her be your other wife. And when she will give birth, she'll give birth on my knees. This was a sigula, that when a woman is present, when another woman is giving birth, and especially when she's giving birth between her knees, so it looks as if the baby is coming from the other woman. That changes the spiritual reality, and now she turns her mazal and she's able to have children. That's what Sarah did by giving Hagar, and that's what Rachel is doing. And Bilhah gave birth, and Rachel called the son done. That God should judge. God judged me, and he heard my voice. And then she gave birth to a second son, Naphtali. And then Leah saw that temporarily she's not giving birth, and she loves children. She wants to give birth to more children. So she also followed Rachel's example, and she gave her maidservant Zilpah to Yaakov. Now Yaakov has four wives, and Zilpah gives birth to Gad. Gad means good luck in Hebrew. And Zilpah gives gives birth to another son, Asher, means fortunate. Leah says, I'm fortunate. Now, Reuven grew up and he went to the field and he found dudaim, some interesting plant that was known to help women to give birth, to have children. And when Rachel when Rachel sees that Leah has dudaim, she asks her, please, can I have some dudaim? I'm trying to have children, and dudaim might help me. And Leah is a little bit upset. Not only our husband loves you more than me, but now you also want to take dudaim and you want to have more children than me. So Rachel says, you know what? Okay, you can have the husband tonight in return for dudaim. So they made this exchange. Now, this was not a good thing for Rachel, because Rachel now put her trust, instead of Hashem, she put her trust in dudaim. It's not the plant, it's not the medicine that heals, it's Hashem who said so. And what happens? Instead of Rachel becoming pregnant, Leah gets pregnant. And not only that, Hashem says, because you put trust in dudaim and not God, and because you gave up the opportunity, this was the Rachel's turn to be with Yaakov, and she gave up the opportunity to be with the tzaddik. You lost your chance to be with him in death. You will not be buried with him, chas v'shalom. So Leah became pregnant again, and she gave birth to a fifth son, Yisachar. And she said, Yisachar means like yesh sachar. There is reward. Why? Because she gave dudaim. She gave away what she thought will help her to have children. She was willing to give it to Rachel. And she had children first. When you help others to have children, you will have children first. And she then gave birth to the sixth child, and she named him Zevulun. Again, hoping that Yaakov will make his permanent dwelling with her. She still felt that she is a secondary wife. And then she gave birth to the seventh child, this time a girl, Dinah. Now finally, Hashem remembered Rachel. And she conceived and gave birth to Yosef. Yosef means a prayer, may God give me another son. When Yosef was born, Yaakov decided to leave Lavan. And he spoke to Lavan and said, that's it, I'm leaving. Lavan begged him and said, please don't. I recognize that God blessed me because of you. When push came to shove, Lavan admitted. Lavan said, I know that the source of all my success is Yaakov. Yaakov, please stay a little longer. Specify your wage to me and I will give it to you. So Yaakov knew who he was dealing with. So he said, I don't want anything from you. Let's make a deal. Whatever unusual sheep and goats are born, they are mine. Whatever usual goats and sheep are born are yours. And Lavan, of course, happily agreed, because majority of goats are normal. And Yaakov knew he does not rely on the birth rate of sheep. He does not rely on Lavan's honesty. He has no one to rely on except for God. And God can provide him with parnasah from an unexpected place. So he chose the most unexpected payment. Give me all unusual sheep. But beforehand, remove all unusual parents from the flock. Give me just all plain colored sheep. He made the test even harder. And Lavan happily did it. He removed all normal colored sheep. Now Yaakov had to take care of all the normal sheep. And what happened? Yaakov made a special trick to influence the sheep. He took branches of tree, peeled at intervals, and when the sheep looked at it, they gave birth, again miraculously, to sheep that were also unusually colored. And Yaakov became rich. And Lavan and his children started to be jealous of Yaakov, and they accused Yaakov of theft. And Yaakov heard it. Now we're in chapter 31, page 161. He heard Lavan's sons saying, Yaakov has taken all that belonged to our father. And at that moment, Hashem appeared to Yaakov, and he said, return to the land of your fathers. So Yaakov asked his wives for advice. Imagine this. Hashem comes to him and says, go back to your father's home. And instead of saying yes and telling his wives, pack your bags. No, Yaakov calls his wives and says, I have advice to ask you. And he reveals to them what's happening, that Lavan is not treating him well, and that Hashem came to him and told him to go. And he said, what do you think? Should we go? And on page 163, verse 14, Rachel and Leah replied, of course, whatever God has said to you, do. So, verse 17, Yaakov runs away from Lavan. This time he doesn't tell Lavan because he knows that Lavan will try to stop him, and this time maybe to kill him. Yaakov arose and lifted his children and his wives onto the camels. He led away all his livestock and all the wealth which he had amassed, his purchased property which he had amassed in Padan Aram, to go to his father Yitzhak to the land of Canaan. And Rachel stole the idols of her father, the teraphim. Now we turn to page 165. It was told to Lavan on verse 22, on the third day, that Yaakov had fled. So he pursued him a distance of 7 days. For 3 days, the messenger, the spy, was going with Yaakov. For 3 days, he ran back. He told Lavan, and in 1 day, Lavan went what it took Yaakov 7 days to go. And he caught up with him. But since it was late, he ran from the morning till night, and he covered the distance of 7 days. He went to sleep, hoping to kill Yaakov the next day. However, Hashem appeared to Lavan, and he said to him, beware lest you speak with Yaakov either good or bad. Which means Hashem warned Lavan that God is watching and he is not allowing to Lavan to hurt Yaakov. So Lavan, in verse 25, overtook Yaakov, and in verse 26, Lavan said to Yaakov, what have you done that you have deceived me and led my daughters away like captives of the sword, and cheated me, and you acted foolishly? I can kill you and all your family, your whole family. But I can't do it because your God came and told me not to. But I'm asking you, why did you steal my idols? So Yaakov said, I thought you will kidnap your daughters from me. That's why I had to run away stealthily. If you think that I stole your idols, I welcome you to search all my belongings. So in verse 33, Lavan came into Yaakov's tent and into Leah's tent and into Bilhah Zilpah's tent and found nothing. Then he went to Rachel's tent on page 167. He rummaged through the whole tent and found nothing. In the meantime, Rachel hid them in a pillow, and she sat on a pillow. And she said to him, let my Lord not find it annoying that I cannot rise up before him, because I have a period and I cannot. So he did not ask her to rise. He did not find anything. Then Yaakov became angered, and he took up his grievance with Lavan, and he complained to him. He told him, you tricked me so many times, and if not for God, protecting me, I would have left in the best case empty-handed. And now you're accusing me of stealing your idols. For 20 years, I worked for you tirelessly, by day and by night. Now, verse 43. Now Lavan speaks up and reveals his true identity. The daughters are my daughters, and the children are my children, and the flock is my flock, and all you see is mine. That's Lavan. Everything he sees that belongs to other people, he wants to grab. And that's, as I told you at the beginning, that's the nature of evil. Evil always, what's the definition of evil as opposed to good? Evil always takes. Good always gives. Now, having nothing to do, Lavan says, okay, let's make a peace treaty. So they took stones and made a monument and a mound. Now we're on page 169. Lavan said, this mound is a witness between me and you. And what's the covenant? This is in verse 52. This mound shall be a witness, and the monument shall be witness that I may not cross over to you past this mound, nor may you cross over to me past this mound. And this monument for evil, which means we can visit each other peacefully, but we take upon ourselves not to attack each other. May God be a judge between us. And Yaakov swore by the God of his father Yitzhak. Now, chapter 32. And they arose early. Lavan kissed his sons and daughters and blessed them and returned to his place. And verse 2, Yaakov went on his way, and angels of God encountered him. Now, alive. When he was going to Lavan, he saw angels in a dream. Now he sees angels during daytime. Yaakov said when he saw them, this is a godly camp. So he called the name of that place Mahanaim, which means camps of angels. So we see that after having passed difficult tests for 20 years, and after having been married to 4 wives, Yaakov has reached such a level that angels appear to him during the day. And the next Torah portion, we will see that not only that, but Yaakov actually has control over them. Now Yaakov can send them on a mission to fulfill his will. That's the great level one can achieve when they pass tests and when they are married. Thank you for listening. May we all have successful life and good in-laws, not like Lavan. May we pass all our tests, and Shabbat Shalom.